Right. Okay. You're live now, girls. Okay. So you've got to behave yourselves. Right. Just introducing, we've got Nicole Taylor. Give them a wave, because when I record, it doesn't always come up in the order of the screen that we're looking at. We've got Julie Goodge, previously Adkin when she was a little girl. And we've got Lucy Reid.
Hi.
and me. And I'm Mark Hookway, as most people know, and coach and team manage. I've been lucky enough to team manage Nicole and Lucy over the years, and Julie's come on board as a colleague coach. Now, we'll start with Lucy, and I'm just going to try something here. So Lucy Reid, I've got personal best 3,000, 926, 5,000, 1609, 10,000, 3358, and a half marathon of 72:49. And recently, this is what she did. I'm just going to bring this up.
Hey.
Hey.
Nice.
That is Lucy in one of her most recent races, finishing 6th in the big half marathon in London. So that's Lucy for you. And then we'll go to Nicole, who I've got down as being a teammate of Lucy's, but obviously a rival and a competitor as well. We'll start with the 1500, because Nicole, you got slightly better 1500 pace than Lucy at 422, 5,000, 1609, 10,000, so 3,912, 5,000, 1549, and 10,000, 3331. All club records, I think, but not the half marathon, because Lucy's got that. Both Lucy and Nicole have represented England, and I've got here one of Nicole's more recent photographs, which is finishing 2nd in the Southern Cross Country at Parliament Hill. Okay. And I'll show you another one, which I particularly like, which with Ashley Gibson. You can see that, girls?
Nice.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Won the National Cross Country Relay Championships at Mansfield the year before last.
I'm glad you chose that picture, not the one of us jumping.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now the fun bit starts, because we go back in time with Julie.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about Nicole and Lucy, but Julie ran 1,500 in 426, 3,000 in 940 at quite young ages. You've got a son and daughter who have both represented England schools, who run for Tonbridge AC. You won the under-13 and the under-17 national, and you're probably going to come up with a few other things you won. But I picked out this.
Oh dear.
Look at, no, it's not embarrassing. It's not embarrassing.
I love that photo.
There we go. Top of the national in 1985. There was 4 Tonbridge girls in that race. And in 12th place was Emma Langston.
Yeah, she travelled up with us that day.
Did she really?
Yeah.
And I'll just show you one final photograph before you guys have a little talk. And that's Julie here. That is Julie leading the national under-13s in 1985 with her teammate Stacey right on her tail.
Yeah.
All right. So that just puts a few things into context. So those are just snippets. So what should we start with? Lucy's done all the research, 5 hours of homework.
No.
Put into context where you are with your running, when you started, what your highlights have been, Lucy. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I've been running at Tonbridge for many years. I can never remember the exact year I joined, but I think I was 7 or 8 years old in Dawn's group initially. And then, yeah, so that's kind of 20 odd years ago now. I say like until kind of through the age groups and then until after university, I was sort of always loved running, always had a passion for running, but not kind of competing at the top level or even kind of aiming to compete at the top level. And then since uni, I've sort of taken it all a bit more seriously and had like the goal of running for England one day, and then was lucky enough to kind of reach that goal in the last couple of years. I was trying to think of highlights over the years aside from kind of England races and PBs, and I picked out competing at the British Champs, because that event is just amazing, and to kind of be in a position where you can say to your friends and family, oh, like, check out BBC Two at this time on Sunday, like that's amazing. And kind of I don't know where I placed, like last year I was second to last, I think, but it doesn't really matter because the whole day is just amazing. And then the other one I picked out was also Mansfield, so I'm glad you brought it up, just because that was such a kind of significant achievement for Tonbridge as a team to have a senior women's medal at the national level. And it was just such an amazing day, and to do it with Nix and Ash was so good, having been teammates for so many years. And then the other one I'd pick out as my favourite races was actually the Eridge 10 miles, because it's such a good race. It's kind of, for people who don't know, it's through like the amazing Kent countryside. It's 10 miles of like hills, mud, and everything. But the race itself is amazing because they have loads of people bake cakes for the end of it, and they have a big kind of massive cake sale afterwards. And also I won it outright one year, beating all the men, which is just like so I pick out that one as another highlight, even though it's a local one. I just love the event, and also it was cool to win outright, because that doesn't happen very much.
And just to add, you went to Sevenoaks School. Oh, before that you went to which
I went to Camp Grammar until sixth form, and then Sevenoaks, and then uni, and now I live in London. You're at Durham at university, and then you're working for. Go on, you tell us what's your career. And now I work in asset management, so in finance in London, and I've been doing that for nearly 5 years now.
Yeah, long hours and
fairly long hours, fairly intense.
And that's one thing all three of you got in common. You're all working and having to balance your athletics alongside that. So Nicole, go on. What are your highlights? Lucy mentioned the British Championships. I remember you leading it by quite a long way at one stage, the 5,000.
Yeah, that was fun. I went with the intention of getting a PB and like using the athletes around to just run really hard. Got through the first K and I found myself in the front, and I was like, this is PB pace, like great. Carried it on and no one went with me. So I was like, okay, 5K on my own, that's gonna be fine. And I got to about 3.5K and oh my God, it was so hot. And then mentally doing that many laps by yourself, I was just crumbling. And then when everyone started overtaking, I was just falling backwards. It was awful. But then at the same point, it was amazing to be at the front. And I got so many pictures of me in front of Melissa Courtney and like these amazing runners. So no regrets. It was great. Hurt at the time.
Gram, Nicole.
It was great on the gram. Likes. But yeah, a massive highlight for me was the Mansfield relays. I just remember passing over to Luce, and then when she was in first, I was like crying to Rich, like, how is she in first? Like, this is amazing. Like, I wish like Ash could hold it. And then me and Luce caught up with each other, and watching Ash finish we were like just crying. It was just amazing. So that was a huge highlight for me.
And individually, other than leading the race at the British Champs, what are the highlights looking back, do you think?
Probably my first England selection at Burgos. Just being around all these different athletes from like Spain, there was some from Kenya and Ethiopia. It was just amazing, and it highlighted the next level a little bit. And having all my family there, and Henry and Richard at the finish line was just amazing. So yeah, that was another highlight.
I should explain that you and Lucy are both coached by Richard Owen, that is, from Tonbridge. And Richard's part of the club. He's at club nights and training nights, and Nicole's a regular attendee, probably 3 or 4 times a week, aren't you, at Tonbridge? So you live there. Whereas Lucy, a little bit different, based in London, coached remotely by Richard a lot of the time, gets to see him at races and occasionally otherwise, but been away from Tonbridge and living away from Tonbridge for some time. So different circumstances there that will have a bearing on your career and attitude and how things work. So, and Julie, of course, was Tonbridge, coached by Mick Hamlin back in the day, and returned in recent years to as a supporter and then a coach. So, Julie, what have you written down? A long list of achievements as a teenage phenom, as they call it.
Highlights.
Yeah.
I chose four career highlights, and actually always like similar reasons to the girls, to be honest with you. Like, it wasn't so much about the race, it was more about like the whole weekend and who was with me and things like that. So my first one that I chose was the national cross country as an under 17, and it was just I think actually how I raced it was I was so sort of pleased with myself with how the race turned out, because at one point it was I was quite a bit behind, and I remember going up the last hill and just having that wasn't determined not to give up, and sort of came back from about probably 40 metres down to sort of come back and win it. So that was like a career highlight, doing that, and plus it was just a whole weekend was brilliant, because my whole family were up there, and we stayed with relations, and it was just a really good weekend. So that was.
Where was it, Julie? Where was it?
At Leeds, Roundhay Park, I think it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was just a brilliant weekend. It was a real sort of, a family affair, like as Nicole said when she competed for England. And then another one was again. It's the SIAB into cross country as an under 17, and it was in Ireland, and I think it was I only just got into the team running the English schools the week before. I felt absolutely terrible in that race, but managed to squeeze into the top 8, and then the following week was the SIAB, and then it was I felt like a different runner. I felt comfortable in the race. The course sort of suited me better. I think what was just, again, the whole weekend was a brilliant weekend, but it was also just the fact that my dad had travelled all through the night to get to Ireland to watch the cross country race, and I think he'd had a real hell of a journey, sort of travelling through the night to get there, and it was just him going there to support me, and so that was just a brilliant weekend, sort of a career highlight. And then the other one was probably the first time representing GB Juniors, and it was a youth, I think they called it an Olympic Youth Festival or something like that. It was in Holland, and I ran a 3K road race, and I felt though it was really sort of special, because they had it was filmed the whole way round with the quad bike in the front, following the front runners, and again it was just I felt it felt really special. So that was definitely like a career highlight. And again, the whole weekend, I think we had about 4 or 5 days. So it was in Holland, and there was other obviously sports competing. It felt that we was part of something really special, because there was lots of different sports going on.
Yeah.
I think that was a few career highlights I thought of.
Good. And you can tell the way you speak. And one of the aspects is that people that don't necessarily make it to seniors, they still have a lot to look back on. And you're still firm friends with some of those girls that you ran with, aren't you?
Oh, definitely. I think they'd be like lifelong friends, really. I mean, we don't see each other that often, but it kind of doesn't matter, because you still, whenever you meet up, you still talk about all the memories that you had when you were younger. Yeah,
good. Brilliant. Well, that puts it into context. I mean, I'm not being rude by saying that both Lucy and Nicole were probably not as good in the junior age groups as you were, but they succeeded in transferring to senior level, which you didn't, did you, Julie? You went to Loughborough University.
Yeah.
That's where it sort of came to an end until you got back into it with your own children and coaching. Is that right?
Yeah, it really come to an end before I'd gone to university. I never actually went to the university. I just went to the college.
Okay.
But I was only there for a term, and it wasn't a good time for me there. I'd given up really. I hadn't given up running before then, but I had it was almost a bit of it didn't happen overnight, but that was the start of me giving up. I'd gone there with all the intention of training with a group as part of Spencer Duval's training group under Dave Sunderland, but it never quite worked out. I never managed to sort of go over and be part of a group training session, and I was just again probably similar to how Lucy is with Richard. It was very much just the training was sent over the phone. It was the day before emails, so I was doing a lot of training sessions on my own, and I wasn't a person who could run and train on my own. I needed people around me. So that was just the start of me giving up. But it sort of really had happened before then, that my heart wasn't in it by the time I got back, up to Loughborough.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But I don't think, bearing in mind the period we're in at the moment, I think we should just give a nod to how everyone's viewing the current situation and dealing with it. Lucy, you said to me this morning that you missed the countryside when I told you I was on a walk, and that really brought it home, because I think living in London is significantly different to where Nicole, Julie and myself are currently, both in terms of how dense the population is. The coronavirus has had more of an impact in London so far, and getting out and training in parks and things. I mean, what's been your experience? You're still working, of course, as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so we moved to working from home, I think 4 weeks ago now. That in itself was quite a difficult adjustment, to be honest, just because work's quite interactive. So just starting to feel quite isolated from that perspective was a bit of a transition that had to take place. That now is kind of, I've gotten used to, and I'm actually quite happy working from home now. I'm not sure how we'll ever go back to normal, but yeah, on the running side, kind of just to pick up on one of Julie's points, I was fortunately already in a position where I did a lot of my training on my own. So aside from once a week when I join a group, I joined Cottage Group down in Battersea, I train on my own anyway. So this, and that aspect hasn't been that different for me. And I'm still able to get out for runs. Obviously, as everyone is, super grateful that we're still allowed out once a day to exercise. And that's meant that generally my routine hasn't changed that much. Going to the parks is a little tricky. At one point I was very worried they were going to shut all the parks or stop people in London leaving their flats. So I quickly got hold of a treadmill, so I have a backup because I was really worried about that. And they have cleared some of the parks, but it's just been a case of being sensible and going out early in the morning when it's not too busy. And actually, I went out earlier today to Battersea, and now that the weather's not as nice as it was much emptier, and I felt completely fine, keeping my distance around the park. So hopefully the worst is over from that perspective, and it doesn't feel like they're going to become more stringent from here in terms of closing stuff down. So it's been okay. I think
you've got a flatmate, haven't you? Not entirely on your own.
No, I've got I live with 2 friends, so yeah, I'm very grateful as well for that, not to be completely isolated all day, every day. Have
you actually set the treadmill up? Are you on a ground floor flat or on a?
I'm not on a ground floor flat, and no one's complained yet. So the treadmill has been set up, yeah.
I saw somebody put a video out, and they got the racket their treadmill was making, and they were on the 2nd floor, and they're a bit worried about it.
Yeah, no one's complained yet.
Good. And so physically you're coping, you've got company.
Yeah.
You've got loads of friends, so I'm sure you're keeping in touch with them remotely as well.
Yeah, lots to do. I am definitely missing the group training session, even though it was only once a week. That's my favourite session of the week. But yeah, for me it's not too much of an adjustment to make. And I'm sure we'll go into this more later, but from Rich and I have sort of agreed just to kind of go into more of a base training phase, because obviously there's no races to focus on. So just kind of stepping back a bit from intensity and just kind of keep things ticking over, which is great. And also it's the best part of the day is getting out on a run. when you can get out of the flat. So it has become a bit of a sanctuary at the same time.
But I'll direct it to Nicole as well. I mean, it's a spell where you were making good progress, you had races to look forward to, and suddenly all that's gone. I mean, how are you feeling about that, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about that, because I'd just come off the back of the big half, as you said earlier, where that was quite a breakthrough race for me, especially after periods of injury. So then I was really excited, because I was meant to be Brighton 10K, I think it was tomorrow, should have been tomorrow, and then a load of 5K races. So that was gutting, and I'm a bit sad that it doesn't seem like there's going to be any track season at all. But like, hopefully, touch wood, by the autumn or maybe a late summer, there'll be stuff coming up again. So if I roll back into half marathons, like, that's fine. But I want to kind of hold on to this fitness through this period, and then just be in a position where when the races start getting put back in the diary, I can then focus specifically on whatever distance it is at that point. So
pretty much you've got your head around it all, and you're in a good space at the moment.
I mean, yeah, at the moment, yeah. I think 4 weeks in, stuff that would have been completely alien before is now just normal, like not having any races, and not because the other thing is, running is quite a big part of your like your social calendar, and also just like races in the diary form quite a lot of your weekend plans. So that's quite strange, and I miss that. But given everyone's in the same situation,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't feel like you're missing out, because it's not even going ahead. It's just a bit of a shame, like obviously a shame.
Yeah. And Nicole, you were working as well. Are you still able to do? How are they coping? You better explain what you do as a career, because.
Yeah, so I teach autistic children, and because the government guidelines are, if children have education healthcare plans, which all our children do, schools must remain open. So our school is actually still open, but we closed for half term. So I'm going back in on Monday. But what they're doing is to reduce the amount of staff and pupils coming into contact with each other. They're doing it on a reduced ratio. So I think I'm going in 3 days and then working from home the other 2. So to try and alleviate some of the pressure from parents, and to prevent everyone being in contact with each other. So yeah, I am going in next week. And it's strange working from home as well. I normally bounce ideas off other teachers and things, and it's not so accessible, and some of the teachers have children, so for them it's really tricky to get a Zoom call going, because their children are like running in the background, and it's not so easy.
You're teaching autistic children remotely?
Planning from home, and then going in and then delivering. Yeah, so keeps me busy. I'm quite glad I'm still working. It's keeping that mental side busy. I think if I was doing nothing or was furloughed or something, I'd go insane.
Yeah. And you've got your own house with your partner Henry and a dog. No, you haven't. Have you got the dog?
No, we are looking into getting one though. Parent. Yeah, a dog just completes a house, so yeah, we're on that.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And as far as the running is concerned, you said you had a bit of a wobble today, and you suddenly found it a bit tough, you know. But
yeah, it was so bizarre. So like this whole time, training my own has been absolutely fine. I found it just so nice to just get out and go on a run. And then today I was so psyched to get out. Got to like 5K, and I was going up this hill, and I was just like, I just had nothing, and like I don't know if it was mentally or like there was no like explanation, but I was just like, I'm just gonna stop. And then I like got my act together and was like, what am I doing? Like, just carry on. And I did, and I have no idea what caused it. I think possibly not knowing when this is going to end. It's taking its toll training by myself, because I'm, as you say, like I come to Tonbridge so much, and I think today it just really hit me for some reason. But yeah, I'm fine about it now. And I spoke to Richard about it, and he was like, it's fine, just talk about things. And doing that has made me feel so much better. And I'm already excited about tomorrow's run. But like, it's not like I love the sport, so it's nothing to do with that. I think it was just not knowing what you're working for a little bit was hard. But at the end of the day, you know, we are going to come out of this, and we are still going to have things to aim for. So I don't know why it hit me today, but it did.
Yeah, no, I think what I've noticed, I mean, we're lucky, we'll come on to Julie in a second, but the group that we're involved with, Nicole, are all over 18, and it's been quite refreshing to see everybody embrace their running because they like running rather than because they've got to do it for a competition. And I haven't noticed anyone particularly thinking, well, I'm not going to bother now because I haven't got any competition, because they just enjoy running. Old Sean Malloy, bless him, did a 20-mile run the other day. He would never have done that under normal circumstances. And just seeing different places and getting out well away from the flat or wherever. Yeah,
I was thinking that, Mark. It's definitely been it's definitely made me be more like try different routes. I got in quite a bad habit of just always doing the same kind of long Sunday runs, and now I have time to like sit down and plan a whole route from my house, but still I've been trying to new places, and also to avoid the busy areas, like just trying to find different routes has been quite nice.
I keep thinking in London, I was talking to Henry Pearce a while back, a few days ago, and he was saying how quiet parts of London are compared to the park. I said, well, you could go and do reps around Trafalgar Square for the only time in your life.
You literally could go do reps around, exactly, Covent Garden.
Really?
I actually passed Henry last week on my run. We were both in the city, and he was like, "Oh, why don't you join me?" I was like, "No, I can't." He's like, "No, I'm not going that far or that fast." I was like, "No, because of the 2 meters." Oh yeah, no, we shouldn't. You're right.
Yeah. But where's the most interesting, Covent Garden, the most busy place normally that you've been to for a run now, or you've been anywhere?
Yeah, well, I've been going like down Oxford Street, Regent Street. There's no one around, absolutely no one. It's crazy. You could do like 1K reps up and down in the road, basically, in Oxford Street, and not have to worry about it.
Amazing. And Julie, you don't run so much yourself now, but you still are firmly involved in athletics. I mean, you'd have been watching your own children. Well, the children, they're not children anymore, really. I mean, how old's Katie? 17 now?
Still my babies.
Yeah, Jamie's a bit older. He's university and working, but you would also have had quite a few under 13s surrounding you on a club night and organising them and getting the buzz from seeing them train. But how are you coping with that, missing that?
I think the first week, actually, it was quite nice to have a little bit of a break, really, from, not sort of getting into the routine, going down on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But, that didn't take long. I'm now actually quite missing not going down on Tuesdays and Thursdays to the club nights. But I think as a whole, I'm coping quite well at being just indoors and not doing much. We're going out for daily walks, and we're, I'm exercising on or doing a workout on our exercise bike. So I mean, I'm coping. I'm working just as well at home remotely as what I would be if I was working in the school. So
you better explain what you do.
I just do IT support actually at the same school that Lucy used to go to at Togs. We've got all the whole families, and you've got a good setup working from home. You've got Gary upstairs in the computer room, Jamie in his bedroom working from home as well, and then Katie, I think she's doing some schoolwork, but who knows? But yeah, we're all sort of like working quite well from home, and we all sort of like text each other and say, want to meet up for lunch, and then they come downstairs, and we have lunch together. So the actual sort of coping, sort of staying indoors, I've not struggled too much with that. I think it's quite nice that me and Gary go out for daily walks, which we would never have done that before.
Yeah.
but yeah, I am missing the club nights now. It'd be almost nice to have a bit of everything, you know, a bit of the best of all worlds, isn't it? Really, sort of like, you know, enjoy this time together with the family, and yet still sort of just go down and have the club nights.
I think that's one thing. You know, runners and coaches. You know, I'm used to getting home about 8:30 and having dinner then. Now we're eating it at 7. Well, there's 3 of us in the house, and we're all eating it together. Well, you count Oscar, he has a little bit as well, the dog. But we're all sitting down and eating it at the same time together and having a chat, which we wouldn't have done. And yeah, it makes you realise how busy we all are in life under normal circumstances. And I was like you to start with. I thought after so many years of coaching and just being on this treadmill of every day I had a schedule, be able to step off it for a bit was quite a relief in that respect. But I think the feeling's starting to change. You certainly realise how serious the situation is and how vulnerable people are and how we're ever going to extricate ourselves from it. And it's, yeah, I find myself taking walks and making sure I go via Tonbridge school fields where we would be training this time of the year and things like that. It's getting a little bit sad, really. But I hope they do find a way through it. And I'm just wondering, do you think any of you, what will we take into the next phase? What will we actually just revert into how we were, or do you think significant things will change? I mean, Lucy, at your work, are they going to take on board any of this way of operating, do you think, or do you think it just revert back to madness again?
I think that I can't see it going back completely to how it was. I think if anything, there'll just be less travel, I think, because people have got used now to doing meetings remotely and calls remotely. And I think that whereas before, I'd never worked from home before. That was never on the cards. Like, people just don't do that. But I think now that everyone's set up to do that, and they've got, you know, your IT set up and all the rest of it, hopefully that becomes something that we can do from time to time, and maybe that makes everything a bit more flexible, which is good, because I think it was moving that way anyway, but this has definitely accelerated that, because I would never have, you know, set up screens and downloaded Zoom and all the rest of it it sort of needed that push for people to really do it and all make sure it was working properly. So hopefully that's something that comes of this, like in terms of like a silver lining of the long term. And then just more generally, I totally agree with you. Like, you're so busy. I can't believe how we fitted everything in before. So that'll have to be like a transition on the other side, I think, back to going full pelt at the pace of life as life was before. So I'm not sure whether personally I'll make changes, maybe just make a bit more time, or keep a bit more time free to just be doing nothing, because it's definitely been quite nice to have a bit of almost a bit of a pause.
Yeah. Nicole, can you see life changing?
Not really. I think it will just go back to normal. Possibly for Londoners, as Lisa said, possibly. But I think people are just too money driven, and I think when people are at home, people do switch off. I think the work can be, it depends what kind of person you are. I think like people like us would probably work just as well as home, but I know some people do really struggle to switch off, and then your work becomes home, and then it's having that, I don't know, escape. So I kind of think it will go back to normal. Sorry to be negative, but I don't know, it's kind of how well, for me anyway, I work in a school, so and that with the pupils I work with, you can't teach them remotely. They need that one-to-one interaction. So for me, it will go back to normal.
Yeah. Julie?
Now, I think for like schools, I think schools will go back to normal, because they can't, you know, the best way to teach is in the classroom. I don't think they would be choosing to work remotely, you know, afterwards. It will be straight back into the classroom and business as usual. But hopefully people's attitudes might change a little bit. Hopefully people's, you know, like the things that they had done as families, hopefully they'll carry on doing as families, and things like, you know, the positive side of things. Hopefully the positive side will still carry on. Who knows? I
do find with myself, with just organising things and having meetings with people, one of the biggest hurdle of moving projects forward is getting people together for a discussion, just finding a time and a date and not getting in the way of the rest of their life. But you can do that so much more effectively with this sort of meeting. And we've done it with committee meetings. We had a meeting about the club's 75th anniversary celebrations, potentially in 2 years' time. Had meetings with other coaches and spoken to people about virtual races and got them organised and things like that, which couldn't have otherwise done without this sort of way of operating. So it's been, you know, quite an experience, I think, to do things much more effectively in some ways.
I was also thinking that lots more people seem to be running, like outside of the running community, but like everyone's taken up, maybe, or running or cycling or whatever, and like making the most of their allotted exercise time. So
I know nationals next year is going to be stacked.
There's so many more people. I read a stat about how many more people have joined Strava in the last couple of months. I don't remember it, but just like loads of people getting more active, which is great. Hopefully that continues.
I wonder how many like cricketers and hockey players and netball have been going out running. I've seen girls and lads running outside. Most people who run I would know in the area, but I don't recognise them, and they're running, and I just wonder how many will suddenly realise they actually enjoy it and to continue. It could be inundated with new members rather than the other way, which the fear was how many people would lose their way. I mean, it's not good, but necessarily. But one of the lads who plays football, his football coach gave him the team a challenge to keep fit, and they gave him these points to points in London to replicate running between them. And he ended up winning by 40 miles and running 70 miles in a week. And you think, oh wow. Which is, for a young lad, was probably a bit too much. But the rest of his team will probably be a lot fitter as a result of the challenge and going out for runs and things. So, it's interesting times. But so let's get on to one of the main reasons for getting together, experiences through the age groups. Let's start with the under 13s and under 15s. Now, Nicole, when did you actually start running?
Under 15.
Sorry?
So it was 2008 and I was in year 8. So that was under 15.
So you do qualify for this part of the discussion then, because you came at it slightly later than the other two, but you joined in. Talk us through, what can you remember from that, not your successes as such, but your attitude to the sport, how you felt? Was it all new to you? Were there any pressures involved?
Well, I remember doing the primary school cross country like races and finishing like 7th or like top 10. And I was like, Mum, I really want to join a club. And there wasn't really any clubs in Crowborough or like nearby. So she was like, oh, just keep going on and runs around. And then I did. And then went to secondary school and again competed in the competitions and was coming like first or like second, like top 3. And so my mum was like, actually, she's all right. So maybe I should look into a club. I was always doing sport. I was a dancer, I was a footballer, I was a gymnast. I did anything. And then used to do all the after school clubs. And then, so eventually we looked up running clubs and it was between Lewis, which is in Sussex, or Tonbridge. And at the time, Kelly Holmes had recently won the double Olympic gold medals and was a member at Tonbridge. So there was no like doubt in my mind. I was like, I'm going to Tonbridge. Joined Tonbridge and just kind of fell more in love with it. Met some really amazing girls who like took me under their wing and just like joined in sessions and just it was just amazing. And there was always that enjoyment factor. There was no pressure at that phase. And I think Pete and Andy's group, which was the kind of under 15 to 17 kind of group, was really good at highlighting. It was all about fun. We did loads of relays, and I remember summer we would play like rounders, so you'd get the mileage in through doing like reps of 400s, but in a fun way. So it was kind of fun, but I got to probably year 11, and it was kind of that phase where you either took it really seriously or you kind of gave up, because all my friends were getting into drinking and partying, and like I didn't know whether to join them or like to do the race the next day. So it kind of quickly had to make kind of a decision, and I picked running, and most of my friends were fine with it. I lost a few friends, kind of like, not like arguments, just, you know, it fizzled out, your attitudes change and stuff. But yeah, so kind of then went to sixth form. I think I represented the south of England at that stage, and
just rewind a second. Let's concentrate on the under 13, under 15 at the moment. And you haven't mentioned anything about performance or racing or your results or how pressure you felt. It was all about, you really did enjoy it. You just enjoyed being part of a club. Is that right? You did. Can you ever remember feeling pressure? Or everyone gets nervous before a race, but
oh yeah, God, I used to cry before races because and I had no idea why, because there was no pressure on me, but I just wanted to get the best out of myself. And I remember athletes at Tonbridge being better than me, and I was just like, oh, how come they've got it so easy? Like, they can just run and just be amazing. So there definitely was pressure in a way, but the training part was all fun, and like the friendship groups that I'm still friends with some of them that still don't run now, but I will be in contact with. So there is pressure, but I think ultimately you need to enjoy the sport, because that's what keeps you in the sport for longer, which I think, as I've said, like, Tonbridge was really good at the time for doing that.
And you were on a roll, and you stuck with it through to the under 17s, under 20s, which we'll come on to in a bit. But there was never any doubt you were going with the flow at that age. There was, you were quite happy, enjoying it, and everything else.
Yeah. Kind of with the group I was with at Tonbridge, it kind of, everyone was sticking at it, so we kind of stuck together.
Yeah. Now, Lucy, you started at an incredibly young age. The club. I think you couldn't have started any earlier, because I don't think, you say you were 8 or 9 or something.
I was definitely at primary school. I can't remember the exact age, but I know that because the reason I joined was my PE teacher said to my mum, she's quite quick, maybe, and like also I was a really shy kid, so I think she'd been like, maybe she should go to a running club, and I think it'd be good for her confidence, and then just she's quite good at it, or like, and similar to Nicole, I was just quite sporty, like all round. I just loved sport, like netball in particular, as well as like athletics. So I think I was always, the sport in general I was quite passionate about from quite a young age. But yeah, 8, 9, I don't know exactly the age, but very young. And I think I went into Dawn's group the very first time I joined, for a few years before moving up into your group, because I think at that stage it wasn't such clearly defined. You went to Pete and Andy and then went to your group.
There was one group at one stage.
Yes, I think I was almost in the first wave where it was sort of just one big thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of on the feeling pressure and the performance side of things, I think I don't remember feeling pressure to kind of get a particular time, in a way that I think I'm much more time focused now than I ever was as a junior. But I do remember feeling like really, really nervous for races, much more so than I do feel today. Like the whole day would be wiped out because I wouldn't speak to anyone. I'd be so scared. And part of that was I was really quite a quiet, shy person, and just being in a race where people are watching terrified me anyway. And then part of that, I think, is just you get used to it with experience. And what was a big deal back then, being in the B string Young Athletes League or whatever is, you know, you get used to just the racing environment and realise that no one cares more than you do about how you perform. So it shouldn't matter so much. But also just like getting used to world athletics, like the feeling of being on the start line, the understanding kind of how to approach a race and tactically, and then in terms of pacing and all that stuff, you learn all of that in the junior ranks, and so at that point everything is brand new.
And you were my impression of you through your teenage years is you would sign up for everything, you know, academically, sport, everything, you know. And I certainly was never sure which one you would pick or which few things you would pick, because you were quite a high achiever at a lot of things at school. How did you balance all of that?
Yeah, I think well, I don't know about that, but I think I one of the points I was going to make was just like it's always the decision you're making is always like what you're prioritizing at one particular moment in time, and I never wanted to let go of either, you know, studies and then whatever career I ended up going into, or running, or I guess not running specifically at that point, just more sport because I loved it. And I think the two go well, like those two streams go quite well together, because for me sport is like the release and the stress release and the emotional release, and also the kind of competitive element. Like it ticks all those boxes for me that I love. And so I don't know, one of the points you were going to raise was how you balance running and, you know, as you go through the years, exam pressure and academic pressure. And for me, at least until kind of the period when you were actually doing the exams, they always worked quite well, because it was just like running was the break and the release and the stress reliever. And then, you know, for the 2 or 3 weeks that you're actually taking exams, then you just had to consciously know that running was going to take a bit of a backseat, and that's fine. And then having Tonbridge and the coaches there being receptive to that, and knowing that, you know, they might not come down to the club nights in that period of time, but these are all relatively short-lived periods of time in the grand scheme of things, and just keeping perspective that running's going to be there when you kind of refocus on it at the end of this period. And obviously when you're going through school, that's like an annual thing, an annual cycle of this exam period, and then, but it is relatively short term in the scheme of things.
Yeah. So around up to like 15, well, that exam period, it was just part of your life, and you felt you balanced it quite well. You got nervous, but it wasn't the be all and end all, and you were quite happy with that, and you didn't feel you were giving up performing better by doing all these other things. Does that sound right?
I think I guess in some ways it's quite a good thing that I was fairly mediocre because I wasn't I didn't feel that pressure, because I'd never kind of been at the front of these races. I was always reasonably good, and you know, I considered myself to be a runner, and like that was a part of my life, but I didn't feel the pressure to be doing a certain mileage or hitting a certain time. I don't think those concepts were even like familiar to me at that age. I think you mentioned earlier just going with the flow. You go with Tonbridge, kind of feed you roughly what you should be doing. You know, you would do 2 sessions a week at this age, you add to that as you go, and I just went with it. And I also would mention just like having Tonbridge there, and also having my parents being supportive of that and allowing me to go at one stage 8 times a week. I think you end up going almost, because then to meet up with the group just makes it quite easy to go with the flow. Yeah.
And the other end of the scale, perhaps, in many ways, is Julie, who was winning left, right, and centre from I don't know what age, but you know, well, under 13 certainly, and even primary school. Were you one of the girls at primary school?
I did. I moved to Tonbridge, and when I was in the last year at primary school, and so I did, and that's when I think Mick Hamlin was a teacher at the primary school, and he apparently he'd noticed, or another teacher had told him that when I played netball, I had much more of a runner's attitude to playing netball. Apparently I was getting frustrated with other players weren't pulling their weight in the team. I don't remember that, but I thought, I was quite a good sportsmanship when it comes to sort of playing with netball players. But apparently I was getting annoyed with everybody else. And so he said, well, that's a really good sort of runner's attitude. And so then they asked me on to sort of start doing the running club. And so it was at Sussex Road where I first started. But I didn't really I think I might have done 1 or 2 races, the famous King of the Hill race at Sussex Road, but not that many races. So it was more once I was at secondary school that I got more into the running.
But then you quite quickly developed into winning things individually and as a team, with quite a lot of publicity looking back at the time. You're always in the local paper, great expectations of each other. You had some teammates who would push you on, as I showed earlier, 4 in the top 10 in the national as under 13. So there was a lot going on and being thrown at you there. I mean, yeah, how did that feel?
I think the under 13s and the under 15 age groups to me were probably the best years really for my running career, which is a bit sad when we were so young. But that was the time that it was much more of a team effort for everybody. We had the under 13 team, we had an under 15 team. By the time I got to the under 17 age group, the numbers had dropped out. So really, I think I might have been the only actual competitor at the under 17s national cross country championships when I did it that year. Whereas in under 13s, under 15s, we had the teams, and they were the by far the fun times. Because it felt it was more special when you were part of the team than what it was when you were running as an individual. I think it never changed my performances as such. I would still run just as hard as an individual as I would if it was a team event, but they were probably more enjoyable to be in team events.
And I put it on display just behind me up here is the under 13 girls team trophy from the national. Last 2 years Tonbridge have won it, I think probably for the first time since when you were in the mid 80s. So having gone through that with yourself and now coaching, what sort of advice, because there's bundles of enthusiasm amongst the team you've got at the moment. There's some really, really good runners, but they could either develop into a Nicole and a Lucy, or they could, similar to what happened to you, could happen. I mean, how do you rationalise that, and how do you approach that with them?
I think you just got to keep it fun. It's got to be, you've almost try not to take it too seriously. Do only just train twice a week. Don't be tempted to think that you need to do more and more and more and train to get better and better, because you will just get better just by keep going at it. And so don't be in such a hurry to be the best. Just it is so much more important just to keep it fun and just keep the enjoyment going, because otherwise it's hard to keep that enjoyment going through all the years. Yeah.
And then we're moving to like the under 17s, under 20s, and leading on from what you've just said, I've always tried to explain to people that with boys, they generally get stronger and faster, from under 15 to under 17 to under 20. So like the English schools, junior boys will be one in 4.5, 4.10 for 1500 meters. The intermediates will be one in 3:55, 4 minutes, and then the seniors like 3:50 or something like that. So there's a progression. The girls, the juniors will be probably one in 4:30, and the seniors could be one in 4:30, and that just illustrates to me the difference on what is thrown at you as girls during, physically, mentally, socially, and in every other way, in those years that Lucy was talking about and what Nicole was talking about in terms of her friends going elsewhere, enjoying themselves. Lucy talking about exams, and it seems to me that huge amount is thrown at you can create quite a lot of turmoil and difficulties. I mean, Lucy, how do you feel about that? And can you recall some of your friends and competitors and how they felt, and why they left the sport and you continued through those difficult years?
It is definitely that under 17 age group where you just see a big dropout rate. And of the girls that I was training with, just from Tonbridge, the vast majority of them, I can't think of many that are still in the sport. And although many of them will still be like into their fitness, that doesn't seem to be something that goes away, but just like competitive running definitely becomes less popular. I think what Nicole touched on is relevant. Like you're feeling the pressure from a social perspective to be prioritizing other things. And I think in my experience, just like trying to keep the balance between the two is key. And like I'd still go training, but that never meant that I didn't see my friends or enjoy doing other stuff. And just like knowing when to put the pedal down and when to ease off, and trying to like give yourself a balance between the kind of two things is really important to keep it going. And that, as Julie said, that is what keeps it fun as well. That you have to be enjoying it. And if you're punishing yourself by not doing other things because of running, then it quickly becomes unenjoyable. And I don't mean to jump ahead, but like I think I felt this most when I went to university. Because for me, I think that's when I had like the biggest sort of life change and also kind of physical change was in that concentrated period. And to be honest, I didn't lose my passion for the sport and I kept running, but I did take the pedal off the intensity of the training and just sort of let that happen, and really enjoyed going out more, to be honest, but still was involved in the sport, joined the uni running club, made a lot of friends there. And that meant that when I'd kind of got through that year or so period, it was there for me to pick back up again and like re-engage with more seriously. So I think maybe just at that point when people cut themselves off entirely, just keeping like some relationship with the sport is so important, because it is there for you on the other side, and it's fine just to kind of deprioritize it relatively to other things. But just I think when you lose all contact, it's very difficult to pick it back up, because it is so demanding and it requires you to kind of be quite disciplined, and just restarting that from scratch is just quite difficult. So just keeping like it on the back burner.
Julie wants to say something.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Lucy, what you said about that. You do get to that certain time, and whether the boys do as well, I don't know, but that's certainly what happens with me. I got to a certain stage that there's that you suddenly realise there's other things in life that you want to try out. You want to start going out more and have more of a social life. And I think it was at that point that I questioned it all. And what is so important is to have people around you that understand that as well. And I know like Richard is fantastic at understanding, and like all the other coaches are at times, like how you do, Mark, how you keep in contact with people when they go off to university. And I think that is so much is a key to keeping people in the sport, is just having somebody keeping that connection going. And that's one of the biggest reasons is that I found is that I didn't have that connection once I'd got to that stage that I wanted to start having more of a social life. I needed somebody there almost to say, come on, come back to it now. You've had that social life, come back, And that's I think the key, keeping people in sport, is just giving them that little bit of time to have that time out, but realising there's still something there if need be to come back to.
Yeah, definitely.
And Nicole, I heard somebody, oh, I know, it was Samantha Harrison. I heard an interview with her, and she's come out of nowhere the last couple of years, hasn't she? And she was saying about she was talking about the social life, and you mentioned it earlier, where she will go out with friends, but she'll make it very clear that she's not drinking any alcohol and she's not going to the club afterwards and things like that. How have you approached that with friends? I mean, they know you're a pretty dedicated athlete now, and so I expect they respect that. But
yeah, I mean, if I go out, I do find it hard not to cave in. So, so I kind of limit myself. Like, if I am going to go out, I'll just have a good time, and then I just know that I'm kind of in it or I'm not. So if I know that I've got a big race coming up, chances are I'm going to be like, no, but I'll catch up with you another time and I'll meet up with them. That's being honest, because I do know that I just kind of enjoy the night. There's been a few times that I've gone to events and just haven't drunk, but everyone's in a very different headspace to you. And I do find it a bit tricky going out if I know that I'm not drinking. But like, I have had good nights when I haven't drunk, but yeah, I'm kind of all in or not in.
No, looking back at what I did, I didn't run to the level you two did. I was okay, but I just wished I'd balanced my lifestyle a little bit better with my running, and running had been more structured. And I think communication today helps a lot. You know, Julie must have been in a very difficult situation when she went to university. It's a lot easier for myself and other coaches to keep in touch with people and just drop the odd message or a group email and things. At least people know we're looking out for them or keeping them involved. Whereas back in the day, you know, it was phone calls from a phone box or whatever. There was no mobile even. So circumstances make that easier, I think. Don't you, Julie?
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I was being coached remotely as such, my training schedules would be sent via post. I had a month's schedule being sent through via post.
Yeah. With no discussion or anything. That's just it on a bit of paper. Yeah.
It would be, you know, I'd have a telephone call, but yeah.
Yeah. And I also found it very difficult. I don't spread myself. I'm very focused on one or two things. I get a bit preoccupied with it, and with work took over from my running considerably in my 20s. And I was working with people who had no understanding of running, and I don't seem to remember feeling that I needed to explain to them. They knew I went for a run, etc., but they didn't know I was going to try and achieve any sort of level. And that was very difficult. They'd be working really long hours in smoke-filled offices, and I'd be itching to go home to go for a run, and that sort of balance I found really, really difficult at the time. Lucy, do you find those pressures? I've heard stories of you training at crazy times of the day to keep running going.
Yeah, I definitely have been partial to an early morning run sometimes, because if you're in a situation where you're not sure when you're going to finish work some days, I'd much rather just get it done. I'd say, well, thankfully it's not smoke-filled offices anymore, so like the environment is fine, and generally I think it helps where if people don't have any understanding of the sport, then stuff like, as I mentioned earlier, the British champs or kind of anecdotes like that help people to understand what I'm trying to do, and that definitely helps them understand, therefore, the time pressure or what it means to me to get out for a run. And the other thing I say is that wherever you work, or I found wherever I work, there's always a group of runners. Like in any office, there are people who get it and who kind of can share your experiences with, and that's definitely true of where I work. And actually, it's opened up doors within my career just from knowing those people, in terms of running races that are within financial services, for example, which have been some of the best races I've done. I didn't mention them earlier in like career highlights, but that's been an amazing extra part of my running career that I never really appreciated would happen. So yeah, but in terms of the time management point, like it is just quite difficult, and you just have to be really disciplined. And that, for me, it really, really helps there, having my relationship with Richard and having a structure and a plan. Because if you're in any doubt as to whether or not you're going to get out of bed in the morning and do it, having someone set you something and know that they care if you do or don't do it, not in a pressurized way, but in like there's an incentivizing way, really helps me to get it done.
Yeah. And just rewinding slightly, we haven't spoken about parents. Now, Julie, you're a parent of athletes, and I've spent many years watching parents and the relationships, and I still haven't come to a final conclusion, because I think it varies so much. You read about in tennis, for example, the Williams sisters or Andre Agassi, where the parents have been really push from a young age and shouting at them and almost torturing them into doing the sport, and yet they come out as superstars. And I've always thought that was the wrong way to go about it. And then you see the performance in athletics of a youngster affecting how the parents' mood is and how agitated they are or not agitated they are. It's been fascinating watching it all. And I don't know what, I do offer advice, but sometimes I'm not quite sure whether I'm correct in that advice I'm offering. I mean, Julie, you were surrounded by your mum and dad, and now Katie and Jamie are supported by your mum and dad again, and you guys. And yet it seems very well balanced and manageable, and I don't get the feeling, well, you're really good. If they don't perform well, you just shrug it off because you've got that experience, but others don't find that so difficult. And I can remember particularly Lindsay, Lucy's mum, looking more nervous than anybody else on the course when Lucy's competing. So it's an interesting dynamic, I think, to the sport, because the parents are so important. Who would like to comment on that?
Well, I mean, I can honestly say, like, with my running career, I could not have asked for more supportive parents. I mean, my mum and dad, you say, they're still very, very supportive now, and they were so supportive. You know what? If I had a bad run, they were no different to if I had a great run. You know, that they were. I would never seen any mood difference whatsoever with them at all. And I suppose that's what's helped with me supporting with Jamie and Katie as well. But you know, you don't need to. They know if they've not run well, so you know that you don't need to make them feel any worse for it. And plus, only a bad performance can only be judged by the runner themselves as well, because if they know that they've gone into that race and they've given it 100%, they've performed the best that they can do at that time on that day, then they shouldn't be disappointed with their performances anyway, you know. So it's, you know, I think I'd like to think that I've sort of made Jamie and Katie aware of that with their performances, and all the other runners that, you know, the under-13s down at TAC as well.
Yeah. Lucy, your mum does get nervous, doesn't she?
Yeah. I think I'd say my parents are super supportive, and I'm so grateful, and they come to like every race that they can do. So that's great, because I love having them there to watch. I don't mind my mum's nervous. Like, I think that's just a reflection of like her investment in like how much I care. But one thing I'd say is I'm very grateful that never ever in my running career has there ever been a point where I've said, I don't want to do this, and they've said anything other than like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, I really think if there's any element of pushiness, I completely agree with you that just for me is like totally the wrong approach, and I'm very glad that I never ever had that. Like, it's always been led by me, and then very lucky that they were then willing to drive me to all these different places and come and watch them stand in the cold for hours. And that's really important, but doing it kind of passively almost is a good balance.
Yeah. And Nicole, your family often at races, a whole gang of them supporting you? And
yeah, so actually my experience is pretty similar to Lou's. Like, family are really supportive. They used to drive me to races all the time. And I mean, my dad's a little bit pushy at times, especially as a junior. he would be wanting me to get PBs every race and things like that. But I think that's more like a masculine kind of dad that doesn't really understand the sport. He thinks every run would be a hard run. Like every training run I went on, it'd be like, oh, was that a personal best of that route? And I'd be like, no. But it's just because he doesn't understand the sport. So I think as I've got older, he's just like, how did it go? Like he's a bit more chilled about it now. And yeah, as I say, they've been great at getting me to places, paying for entries when I wasn't working, obviously. But as I've got older, I haven't needed their support as much, so I can drive myself. And Richard's, to be honest, he's been a huge influence on my success, because he's been, I don't know if I'd still be in the sport without him, to be honest. But yeah, he's been like my driver, my coach, my shoulder to cry on. So it's more than just a coach.
Yeah, organises you quite well.
Yeah, he knows my diary better than me.
And yeah, one of the phrases I've always found with parents that I've heard a lot over the years is when somebody's had a good run, particularly, they go, "Oh, that's good. We got a nice journey home," and that's always worried me, because I'm thinking, "Oh no, what's the flip of that? You know, flip the coin, and does that mean you're gonna have a really bad time if somebody's had a bad performance?" And I don't think you should let it overspill into the rest of your life. But it is difficult for parents, because they won't necessarily understand the sport. And I think for young athletes, one of the great things I think, or important things, is to try and understand more broadly about the sport, and what they're doing fits into context. I can remember probably a couple of the girls your age, Lucy, saying at one stage they didn't realise what was ahead in terms of the amount of training they would have to do to convert to under 20 and senior, and it was all a bit of a shock to them, probably because they turned up at the club, did their runs, did their races, but never became more aware about the sport, and therefore that knowledge wasn't there of what was involved, so it was a bit of a shock to them. So I think that helps, try to explain at a young age that, you know, these are some of the pitfalls that could lie ahead.
Yeah, that doesn't go away though, definitely. Like all the extra stuff on top of running, S&C and Pilates and all that for me in the last couple of years, that's completely changed my approach to that, and I never really put that greater weight on it. So I don't think that goes away. You just like learn what works for you, and learn like how important all the other bits are, as well as running is over the years, and just keep adjusting.
But that's really good, I think. So anybody got any other points? Lucy, you spent 5 hours preparing for this, so you've got a lot written down. We must have missed something or other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about, I think the main thing I wanted to get across was just that you have to know it doesn't go in a straight line, and there'll be like ebbs and flows around the progression. And obviously if overall you're getting fast, then great, but there's been so many periods where I have not got faster, or I've got a lot slower. And we didn't really talk about injury, but
no, we haven't, so go on quickly. Injuries, how have you dealt with them? Because you've probably had more injuries than Nicole, I would have thought, over the years.
I think I just had 2 big ones that have been like many months out, which is basically feels like pressing a reset. So just to make the point that those are obviously very difficult times, but just that the progression doesn't look like that ever, and it's always going to be this, and hopefully overall going up. But I think in hindsight, I think that knowing that makes it a little bit easier. And the other point I wanted to make, sorry I'm talking loads, is that in terms of kind of what you just said about knowing what lies ahead, there's a few things that I wish I had known in terms of the opportunities that running brings you if you really give it your all. So one example being that I never went to the US to study, but that's an opportunity that so many people do take up. And that kind of opportunity to arise from basically your passion for sport, like that kind of thing is amazing, that exists out there for runners if you're willing to kind of commit to it. So that's something I guess specifically that I wish I'd known more at the time about. And then maybe that would have been like an extra motivation for me through the university years specifically.
I think on the injury front, I think big change from back in the day is the ability to cross train and the knowledge about cross training, and that even if you're out for a few days or even a long time, you can throw yourself into that and with a lot more confidence come back pretty fit and be able to take up not exactly where you left off, but not far off.
Yeah, Rich always says to us, you don't become a bad athlete overnight, and I think that's just a really good summary of how to kind of approach these things, because you don't lose years of training for a small period out for injury, and as you said, you can keep it up to a good level doing other things. Yeah.
Anything to add there, Nicole?
Yeah, well, I've been quite fortunate with injuries, really. I mean, I've had, this season's probably been my worst one, with Achilles niggles that just kept coming back, which prevented a bit of training, especially with cross country. Trying to do hill sessions with dodgy Achilles wasn't really working. But yeah, Richard used to just send some brutal sessions, and I remember one session I got to the end and I just cried, because I just had, my eyes were just full of sweat, my towel had been falling off the floor, and I was just like doing this brutal session on my own. But it does make you such a strong athlete. I came back from injury and then came second at the Southerns, so it shows that even through cross training, I think that was about 2 months of injury, you can still get some results.
Good. Well, we've been going quite a long time. One question I haven't asked, and this is last getting towards the end. Lucy and Nicole, you've been teammates. Nicole's slightly younger. What about the competitive rivalry between the two of you? Because I know it's almost impossible when you're in the same race for both of you to have a really good run and both be pleased. And I know from my own experience, I expect Judy did, you judge a lot on how you perform against your teammates. So under the smiles and the niceties, there must be a little bit of grating when somebody beats you, one of your teammates. I won't ask what the Power 10 head-to-head score is, because I think Nicole's ahead on that front. But I mean, how do you view that teammate attitude and rivalry? Because it's there, isn't it? And it must be seeing somebody do really well when you're struggling a little bit. How do you feel about that? Because that's a key part about dealing with that, I think, within a club environment and in a sport. Who wants to go first?
Okay. Well, I love the rivalry. I think me and Lucy have a really good balance of being friends outside, and then when it gets to the race, like even before, we'll be like, good luck, like we can do this. And even after, we kind of know each other well enough to be like, she didn't run well or she ran amazing. So we kind of know how to judge it. And we've been racing with each other long enough to kind of know whether to give each other space or whether to, like, we try not to irritate each other. So I know if I've had a bad run, and Lucy will just like hug me, and she doesn't need to say anything. We both know. But equally, like, yeah, we are competitive, but I think, yeah, a big part of our relationship is that friendship. So I think that will always go above result, for me anyway.
Yes.
I just feel like Nicole's so nice. I love Nicole so much. I never genuinely don't feel like begrudged if she beats me, which is rare, because if many other people beat me, I want to kill them. But like if Nicole, I think there's just like a really unique relationship where we both are genuinely pleased with one another. Yeah, I think that comes from being friends and growing up together, and also ultimately the rivalry has been a good thing because both of us have kept at it. And I think it's not the sole reason we're both still in the sport, but there's definitely an element of both of us keeping each other going and being in a team together, which keeps us both like on our toes almost. So yeah, it's a good balance.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much wrapped that up. Anybody, Julie, do you want to add anything at the end?
No, I don't think so. I just want to, you know, as it's on the girly feel and the girly sort of like chat that, you know, that it's just sort of just go on about the fact about, you know, when you all reach that age where people want to start to sort of think about giving up and the numbers drop. Just the importance of just keep it going, you know, and talk to somebody if you feel the way that you know, if you feel like giving it up. That's all. I just want to stress that point. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. I think the under-17s, under-20s is really, really hard. If you can get into the seniors, you can get some really good results because the masses are there. So you've got plenty of people to beat and enjoy it with. And yeah, under-17s, under-20s, because of that dropout, is really hard to hang in there because there's fewer people, but they're all pretty dedicated to be in there. So it makes it very competitive as well. So that's a tough transition, I think, through there. But many thanks to you all. I'm going to, as long as everybody's finished, I'm going to stop recording, but hang on in there and we'll, yeah, you can say goodbye to everybody. Don't say goodbye entirely because I'm going to talk to you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Right. Pause.